Welcome everyone. If you're watching on Chillmonger or if you're watching on Black Comic Lords. Paul's in the building along with Mark. You know them. If you don't know who Marcus is, Marcus Too Raw, he's from the YouTube channel Back of the Bus. They're from Columbus, if you didn't know what they meant by bus.
Man,
We need to
no,
popularize it
okay,
because that's a local thing that, they call it the bus over there, just like the
you
dot,
keep
right?
going. I will do this entire stream with a Canadian accent to the best of my ability.
You have to
We're
add
not here.
A to the end of that sentence.
Hey, hey, listen, bud. Hey, I don't.
Well, yeah. What's,
We with the loonies. It's a loony. It's a Canadian dollar. Yeah.
okay.
Oh, you know what? Let's get on topic. We're here to talk about the Marvel Voices Celebration Black History Month. I say it's celebrating crumbs. That's what I titled the video on my end. What did Paul
Celebrating
title?
what?
Celebrating crumbs.
Crumbs?
Yeah, like it's not much. It's after the meal. There's we got something left over. Let's do something on February. That's the way I view it. That's why I titled the video what I titled it. What did you title it on your end?
What did I title it? I think I said Marvel Voices and DC Power. Is this the Black History Month celebration we need, or something like that?
Yeah. Do we support or do we skip? So I've bought them in the past. Marvel Voices, because I'm a Marvel guy. I did buy DC Power last year. I got my fill, and I'm done with them. I've it's not the first time. I'm not going to be confused or feel like there's going to be some storyline consequences in this comic book, which is celebrating. I look at the cover, I see that it's got Patriot, and I know what they think of Patriot. They got Blue Marvel, who hasn't had a series since his series Blue Marvel. I know what they think of these characters. Ghostlight. I mean, Paul, I think you're always talking about how those are the Jamaican colors, so we got to support the Jamaican superhero. But
that's me, man. I love Ghostlight.
You love Ghostlight, but I know what they think of him. I know the writers that they put on him in the last year that he's been on, how much he's been frequently featured. I know what they think of him, so I know the level of all these characters, and I go, nothing here for me. I didn't pick them up this year. Did you? Well, let's start with Marcus.
So I did not. I'm not even really a Marvel Voices guy, even though I'm a Marvel guy. Um, I am very well. First of all, I'm very particular with my dollar. So kind of sticking with your theme of what's worth spending your money on, what's worth signaling value to. Um, the things that kind of disqualify it for me is the kind of suspended continuity of it all. You know, the fact that we're all acknowledging that this doesn't matter in any real time or space that's going to carry on or be built upon. That's number one. Number two is that you signal to me very clearly what you think about the project when you announce the writer. And then we can't get around it, right? I don't think we can have it both ways, right? There are going to be some instances where if you want to see black writers elevated and given a shot, you are going to have to see some newer writers get a shot on these titles. I think maybe in that we kind of butt heads a little bit, but at the same time, I recognize that if you're not putting your lead guys behind the title, you're signaling what you believe to the title to be worth to a certain degree. So if we're not getting even, we can suspend Hickman. I'm kind of exhausted with him as being the only name. Like if you're talking about, like you said, Jerry Duggan, Al Ewing, Kieran Gillen.
Wait, hold on. Thank you for watching my videos. Thank you, because you referenced something that these guys would never do. This guy was surprised that I called my weekly stream T'Challa time. He's like, "Oh, that's really cool." I'm like, "We're on week 8. We're on month number 8." But yeah, it's not just Hickman, of course. Jerry Duggan.
Yeah, no, there are a bunch of writers that you could, you're signaling that you're going to give them, because those are the writers that you keep giving chances to, chance, and over and over and over again. So that's what kind of tells me what you think about it. So if that's what you think about it, I can't put any more respect behind it than you are before it launches.
Mark, did
I'm
you
not
pick
gonna
up?
make my pre-orders. It's not gonna make it.
So, as we said on our show on Friday, I did pick up the Marvel Voices book from this year. There were 4 stories in it. I really enjoyed one more than the others. The first story in the book was cool. I also enjoyed that. The other 2 were just there. When it came to the DC Power book, I did not buy it this year because this is the book from 2023 that I still have not gotten all the way through, right? It's a pretty hefty read, but I mean, if I'm reading 10 comic books a day, this should be nothing, but I just hadn't gotten around to finish it. And because of that, I am going to make a concerted effort to do so today. Although I do understand Marcus's point, I disagree to a certain degree, because when it comes to Black writers outside of, Brian Hill, Evan Narcisse, Jeffrey Thorne, who are the quote unquote big names, right? You need to, in my humble opinion, before you give somebody who's untested, give them a shot in a book like this, so people like us, the consumer, can say, hey, I really enjoyed that storyline in that particular book. Let me see what else they're going to have coming forward. There aren't that many huge Black names in comic book writing. Let's just be clear about that.
No, yeah, for sure.
Probably 10 or less. I do enjoy. I support the books because it's about Black characters and it's mainly Black creative. So if we don't support our own, who will? I do understand Marcus's point, though. You got to be selective where you spend the dollar. But when it comes to these, annuals, that basically that's what they are, I'm going to give them my money more often than not.
And I agree with you on the point about there being limited space for Black creators, because like you said, there's 10 of them we can count on both of our hands who have respectable names in the craft right now. But in allowing, right, if the only way that Black writers are going to earn their chops is the annual Marvel Voices issue, then it does become somewhat of a novelty, right? It becomes something. It's like Free Comic Book Day. You can get it or not. And so if we're really thinking that, if we're really behind that, as not as us as readers, but as an editor's room, if you're really behind that, then you got to spread that wealth, right? Let me see Evan Narcisse. No, excuse me. Is it Narcisse or Narcisse?
Narcisse, I believe.
Narcisse. Give him a run on Iron Man. Give him a run on Thor, right? Let's stop passing it between Hewings and Kate on Thor. It's like they have their own bro club on some of the most notable characters in the publication, and they just keep passing them around. Open some of these guys up to allow them to do that to the characters that you covet, the same way you allow them to do it to us, right? Because there are going to be hits and misses with that.
Right. One of the things that you said that we kind of touched on Friday that I really absolutely agree with is that there's no skin in the game with these books, with the stories. Yeah. Like I think Paul said on Friday that when you see a story in one of these basically annuals, it doesn't translate into the character's mainline Marvel 616 story.
If they have a mainline story.
If they even have one. That may be the only time you see it.
Right. There's a character in this book who I'm not a fan of. I'm sorry, in Marvel Voices. I apologize. In the Marvel Voices that just came out. And at the end of that character's story, there was a question mark about what happened in the book, how will it affect the character going forward? Well, this specific character, to my knowledge, doesn't even have an ongoing title and has appeared more recently in an Avengers book, but then that's just been it, So there's no, I'm not going to say gravitas, but there's no real weight to these stories outside of the actual books.
I remember them doing one about Photon, or it was called Spectrum. They called her Spectrum when there was a Photon being advertised. Like, it was a one-pager. This is who Monica is. And she goes by Spectrum. And I'm like, why are you guys advertising a Photon book when she's still going by Spectrum? And then they reused it again on it was another celebration thing. Maybe it was the Juneteenth one. I don't know. Or the Free Comic Book Day. But they use that same thing. Some people may remember what I'm talking about. It's inconsequential. It moves nothing forward. And I think celebrating it and funding it allows for them, the companies, to say, we're doing enough. But I still hear this is a talent showcase, right? If I'm a writer and I'm offered this job, do I say no? Hell no. Why would I be in Marvel's bad books or DC's bad books? They just asked me to. Bad books meaning, like, why would I be in their hit
But
list.
you can't afford, if you're a Black creator at that level, you can't afford to pass up that opportunity.
I get it.
And you have to write it. You have to do it to the best of your ability. The issue is like, even with Eve Ewing with the ongoing Black Panther book, you fall into this trap, right? I know I have to pop. I have to, right? I have to jump out and I have to grab the attention of the readers. So I can either, where she was left off, where she just coming off another run that was cut short by a lesser writer, in my opinion. And so she could either completely do a 180,
Yes.
forget it all, but
Or write issue number
that is
16.
cheap storytelling, and there's no way of getting around it. That may be of what you wanted. That may be what a lot of people wanted to see, and because they didn't get it, you didn't get to get the book. But now I have to be a cheap novelty writer to appease the fan base, or to appease the people that I need to appease to sell, right? But it wasn't her fault. We were left with what we were left with. She was writing a coherent story off of that. And I can't blame her for being a writer, for doing the thing that she's supposed to do.
But here's a question that I have for you, though, Marcus. If these books aren't successful, why is Marvel or DC specifically then going to say, you know what? We showcased all these Black creatives and it didn't do well. Why should we then put money behind them on one of our major IPs, like Iron Man, like, Spider-Man, or whoever, or Thor? Why should we then give them the resources when they couldn't even?
Okay, so okay, if you're in the position of CB Cebulski or Evan Moss, who's deciding who's going to, or is it Evan Moss?
Will
Moss.
Will Moss, my bad. Will Moss. Who's deciding who gets what, who's going where, right? They're divvying up the workload. So if you're saying to me that, hey, we gave these guys a chance on the annual to pop and show us that they could do something, or they had something interesting going, it didn't really work out, so we can shelve them. It's either your fault for limiting them to that one opportunity to showcase, or it's your fault for the crop. Either way, it's on you. Like, you have to take the onus of taking care of it, if you care about it at all. But it can't be so much on us trying to cultivate ways to galvanize our dollars towards specific titles, because obviously that doesn't work, right? Like, we can keep telling, hey, make sure you get Black Panther on your pre-orders, make sure you get Marvel Voices and DC Power on your pre-orders, so this stuff can go, so we can get it, and people can get excited, and it'll actually get repurposed and perpetuated.
But but you know who that they're not going to be that self-reflective. You know they're not going to look.
No, they're not.
Hey, you know what? What do I need to do to put these creatives and these characters in better positions? That's not going to happen.
Here's the thing, guys. What is the purpose of Black History Month?
Educating, celebrating.
What was those two words you used?
Educate, celebrate.
Education and celebration. I think you guys are kind of viewing this the wrong way. These books aren't about, hey, let's test the waters and figure out which one of these creators we're going to bless with a run on a character. It's not about that. It's about the education and celebration. Let's start with the education part. Mark and I are a little older than you guys. When we were growing up, we oftentimes didn't know which of these creators were Black. Unless Marvel did what they used to do back in the day, where they have a bullpen spotlight and they put a picture of a creator, like here's this artist, here's this writer, or you went to a con, you would never know, because the internet didn't exist back then. You would never know who was a Black artist or who was a Black writer. You would never know as a kid that's something that you could possibly do because he did it or she did it. So there's that aspect of it. And Marvel has a long history of, Marvel and DC have a long history of Black creators being involved that a lot of people don't know about. They don't know about Arvell Jones, or Ron Wilson, or Dennis Cowan. You know, they don't know about Matt Baker, for that matter. They don't know about MD Bright. They don't know about Dwayne McDuffie, Keith Pollard, Billy Graham. If any of these names I've said you don't know, that's my point. These are artists and writers who helped make these companies, and they're never celebrated. So the education portion is educating you on these writers. Let's take the Marvel Voices book. It starts out with a foreword by John Jennings, and he says this: each new anthology gives a glimpse into the foundations we stand upon and a new way to see and interpret where we have been. And that past is filled with pioneers, those we believe ought to be read. Legends like Billy Graham, Matt Baker, Keith Pollard, Arvell Jones, Dennis Cowan, Dwayne McDuffie, MD Bright. But at the same time, Marvel's Voices strives to curate our future legends, new voices like Ezra Clayton Daniels, Justina Ireland, who did this in Astaro's book that I really enjoyed, Cherie Renee Thomas, and Eder Messias, telling new bold narratives ready to be read.
I promise you,
So
every single one of those names will be nowhere, just as the guys who did the first Marvel Voices are nowhere today.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about? They're nowhere.
I'm
Justina
talking
Ireland
about-
just finished the book. She's got another book coming out.
What's the book?
I don't remember the name of the book, but she has another book that's coming out soon. She just finished her Sanaa Starros book just a few months ago. It was an excellent book.
Okay, within the company of Marvel or DC, that's what I mean. They're nowhere.
Well, here's the other thing. Most successful comic book artists and creators don't necessarily work for Marvel or DC. Particularly as a Black creator, it's really hard to expect your entire career to be successful working just for the big two.
I'm just going off of the John Jennings forward because he made it sound like, this is the future. But I'm looking at, we're 5 years into the first Marvel Voices. We're in the future.
These are brand new people that are just come out on the scene. These are people these are creators that they're trying to promote as being hot new creators. So they're Paul, brand new.
Let me ask you.
Dennis, there's an interview with Dennis Cowan where he says how he got into the business. And Dennis Cowan's a freaking goat. And he talked about how Arvell Jones and Ron Wilson and these guys mentored him, right? That's how he got into the business. And he's one of the greatest Black comic book artists in history. And he talks about these other guys who were there before me. They took me under their wing, and that's how I got started. That's what they're doing now. Look, Black History Month is about as you said, education and celebration. You've got to educate people on their past, these past characters that no one's heard of. There's a lot of people that are going to pick up some of these books and see some of these characters they've never seen before, right? That's what they do. You got to educate yourself on these characters. Go back into a LCS, hit the back issue bins and go find some of these characters. And then find out who these creators are, celebrate that history, but then take a look towards the future. Here's the new up and coming people. If you see their names, go out and buy their book. Here's some new characters coming out, go out and buy the book. Now, look, I get the argument that that's not enough. What we want is Black History Month 365. In an ideal sense, these books would be freaking unnecessary. We should have the celebration of these creators and these artists throughout the entire year, not just in February. I agree with that point, but it's not simply about sales when it comes to these books. It's really about education and celebration of things that have gone unrecognized for the 100-year history of these companies, and that's important.
You got a super chat going to Black Comic Lords from John Fortune. He says, can't stay, but need to show some love.
Appreciate that, man.
You said something about seeing the creators it's a benefit now. What if I tell you it's a benefit then? Because now if you can go pop on and you can be like, look, who's this creator? Oh, that's who it is. I don't need to support this book. It's one of those. What if that is thought about when people are thinking about what books to read?
when you
Well,
say
I mean, other than He Who Should Not Be Named, who has a book that I had, who did a story in one of these books that I had some issues with.
You don't
DC
say.
Power. You didn't read his writing in Esquire though? Like he had some thoughtful insight. Yeah.
Did he have thoughtful insight in the DC
No.
Power book?
I didn't read it.
I'll
take your word, Paul.
We'll save that for another live. I think he projected a bit.
So basically, what you're saying then is, because I don't think that you mean us as Black folks, is what I'm guessing. Because if you see a writer who just so happens to be Black, are you saying that you don't think that white consumers will read that individual? Because rarely.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah, because rarely outside of the last writer on the Black Panther book, there aren't many Black writers out there, Black creatives, who we collectively would say, yeah, we don't F with that person. So yeah, basically what you're saying, it's kind of a detriment that we as consumers know who these people are because they're Black. And the main, here in America at least, the main consumer would be white folks, and then they may shy away from it.
Yeah, but not specifically just generally white people. Obviously, there's very inclusive people in that large group, but some people may just go, "Oh, it's one of I don't need to read this comic book from him or her." You know,
this is going to be I don't want to read it.
That's my thing. Like trivializing it to only 1 month, right? Like making it the Black History Month spotlight. Like why is it not just a Marvel spotlight where we are, like you said, we want it to be Black History 365. I'm not saying you got to have a Black History Month comic come out every month. I'm saying, can we get some of these ongoings and actually let it last? I had to go through, as an X-Men fan, three reboots of Captain Britain with the same creative team every single time. Tini Howard got 3 shots to write this book, and it got worse every single time. So you're telling me that Eve Hewing can't eat up 10 of those issues that Tini Howard got to go middle around in Otherworld with Captain Britain that no one was reading?
Actually, I think that's the same thing that's going to happen. There will be a 5-part limited series announced in a couple months. It'll be e-viewing, and rather than selling issue 11 to 15, they get to have a new number 1, and that'll just make a little bit more money.
Point. Like, if the most exciting thing that's going on for our characters are 5-issue minis, it's just it's a bit defeating, because what they really tell you is, hey, look, here's this big X event we got going on. Here's the big Avengers event going on. Marvel Voices. And then, hey, look, we got Avengers versus X-Men, and then we got Eternals versus Avengers versus X-Men, and then and we got a 5-issue Photon coming. We may even cut that. It may have been 6 issues. We'll never know. And we might have cut one because it seems like the story was going in a completely different direction until the last 2 issues. Don't get me ranting on Photon. But it's like they're trivializing it almost. And where we look at it as opportunities, and like we want to support. Oh man, that's crazy. We want to support. I'm also recognizing where it's not the same, right? Like when they want to give Wanda a shot, when they want to give who else, Black Cat, if they want to give Spider-Woman, if they want to give Kang. I read a Doom miniseries that got like 10 issues a couple years ago by Christopher Cantwell. You know what I mean? When they want to give those characters a shot, and then that ended up playing a role in the Fantastic Four. They do it.
How about that?
Show you that they care.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It connects back into the main continuity, and it flows. And it doesn't really seem to be this conversation of, well, like you said, it's not all about money, because it's not all about money with them, because Tini Howard's still writing comic books. So it can't be all about money. So what's the difference? Why are middling books allowed to exist for certain writers, and yet there's genuine interest behind others? They're just not pushing the dollars, so they have to go.
The answer to that lies with editorial. The editors determine which artists and which writers get jobs, and the editors determine what stories get told. One thing I've learned in interviewing a lot of these creators, I've heard consistently, what's really interesting is when they say, well, here's a story I wanted to tell, but the editorial wouldn't allow me to do it. You know how many times I've heard that? Not having enough Black editors is an issue. DC is fortunate to have Marquise Draper over there, who was responsible for the surge of a lot of these Black creators getting jobs and a lot of these books coming out now. So, you know, shout out to him. Is there more that can be done? I'm sure he would agree and say yes. There's more that he'd like to do, but he's got bosses too. But yeah, it really lies with having editors. Marvel doesn't have any Black editors. You know, the only one I've seen that I can recall was the one who's in charge of the Star Wars books. And, you know, the Star Wars books has a bunch of Black characters.
I swear to God, I thought Will Moss was Black. I just learned on Friday.
Will Moss is not.
I understand that. But I just thought for the longest time that he was, because I could have sworn that I saw a picture and it may have been two people in the picture. And I thought
the other one was Will Moss.
Right.
No self-respecting Black editor would have allowed the last Black Panther run to have gone for as long as it did.
Boy.
Or waste Rodney Barnes on a Mandalorian. We got $5 going to. Sorry?
Rodney Barnes should be writing like Ghost Rider or something like that. Something that's in his wheelhouse, you know.
But again, I understand why he wouldn't say no to that job. Well, it's a pretty simple job. It's just what we saw on TV. $5 goes to.
You know, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you can finish your sentence.
Rodney Barnes is a top level A-list writer, and he has indicated he wants to write a Luke Cage book. How the hell do you not give that man, who's like Eisner nominated, a Luke Cage book?
Cause man, we got to bring Baltimore in to write a Luke Cage. What was it? Luke Cage.
City on Fire.
Yeah,
Gang War.
Oh, City on Fire. Don't even.
No, that's a whole nother can of worms.
George Floyd.
That's why.
Black America is #1 in music and culture. Why not a music label like Cash Money or Rock Nation sell comics? The rap artists can market the comic. Ooh.
Yeah, but y'all got to buy it, man.
Marvel would never sell to any of them. They would never sell it. There
are plenty of Black indie creators and publishers out there. You guys got to buy the books.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
I think that's what someone else was saying up here earlier. I think it was, let me see who it was, but he was talking about behind the scenes. Chillmonger and other Black indies having their own comic book as successful as the Rippaverse. Is there an R in Rippaverse? This man just called Rippaverse with the hard ER. Would do more than any DC powerless or Marvel voiceless issue.
Chillmonger did have a mad shade, man.
Marvel doesn't have any good editors either. That's funny.
No, yeah. In general, Marvel doesn't have good editors. You know, a lot of stuff is just lackluster these days in Marvel comics, honestly.
But what you was talking about with the celebration aspect of it and how it's good and important, all that, we can have it, and it could lead to something also. It can't be have like Mark was saying. Mark was saying there's a cliffhanger in one of the Marvel voices that
right.
Yeah, but where's this? Who was the character?
Right.
Was it Blade?
That point I agree. I mean, I think if you're going to do the entertainment portion, because I think Marvel Voices book focused more on the celebration education part. DC Power was more of a here's some Black creators that you should know. They're a mixture of older creators, newer creators, and older and newer characters. And let's put it out there, and so you guys can see some stuff that you can get interesting. What I found was cool with the DC Power book is at the end of the book, they had like bios on some of the characters that were in the book. So you can delve further and learn more about the characters and buy other books that they have. So I think that's good for education purposes. A lot of people don't know some of these characters. But I think for my sake, I think a better way to do the stories that are in the book is as you guys said, have the stories have some meaning in the actual main continuity. Like if you're going to put a story with Mr. Terrific, have something that resonates with Mr. Terrific next time he pops up in the Flash book. Or if you have a story with John Stewart, make sure it has something that resonates with the John Stewart ongoing War Journal story. That's the first part. The second part, use the book as, like, Marvel's got this Timeless book, right? The Timeless book, you guys might have seen, where it sort of foreshadows what's going to happen over the next year in Marvel Comics. Why not have these be like a teaser anthology of activities that these characters will have in books? Now that requires
there's no plan.
That requires an actual investment in actually putting these characters in books over the course of the year. And I don't know if the big two are willing to do that.
I know that there's no investment. City on Fire, which we're talking about, it was 3 issues. It was canceled.
Yeah.
How did it get that far? It was only canceled the month of its release. An artist already worked on it. People are like, it got far. Editors don't care. You think editors care about stuff like that? They're not really looking and caring. They're just like, oh yeah, you're doing that book. It's got nothing to do with anything else. Yeah, go enjoy it. Have fun. The more it doesn't interfere with all the other storylines of what's happening, the better.
It's also a reason why it's not a more profitable industry, which is why it always gets in my crawl when we have these conversations based off of how much the book is selling. There's so much waste involved with comic books for it to be a dying industry that it really makes your head hurt, because they have all of these if you so you take into account the X office and all of these books that they do not need, right? A main X title, Immortal was pretty good, X-Men Red. Anything outside of that they've done post Inferno has been a waste. Honestly, it's been a waste. People aren't interested. Where they were interested in Krakoa, they were interested in Araco, and then blew all that up. But there's so much waste involved with a lot of these titles that when we boil it down to something that we want to see continued, it's like, oh well, it's not selling. I mean, like, I could pull out 20 titles that are selling at a similar rate that are still being written. So you really are. Paul was right. You pick and choose what's going to keep going, and there really isn't any clear parameters by which you can follow that gives you a good roadmap of how to stay going, how to keep getting your issues published.
Are you talking about Black Panther?
I'm talking about Black Panther. I'm talking about any Black characters that have the privilege of being in ongoing. Blade right now. Blade is really good right now with Brian Hill. How long is it going to go?
Right.
As long as people buy it.
Yeah, and that's what happened with Black Panther. Not enough people were buying it to warrant 5 more issues.
So where is Blade right now then on the list? Is it in the top 100? Where's it at?
Yeah, it was higher than it was for Black Panther. I don't remember the number, but I remember checking just to see, and it was doing better. And Miles Morales is
doing reasonably well. Yeah.
One of the things also is that we shouldn't get in a position where we think that Black creatives should only work on Black titles. I think Marcus addressed this a second ago. One of the things I'm thinking about is overall in DC. There's a storyline. When you look at DC, there are probably at any given month 6 brand new Batman titles that are out there, right? One of the titles that's out there right now, which is going to be a miniseries, is Batman Off-World, where Batman is literally in space learning how to fight different types of aliens so he can come back to Gotham and be a better protector. I want to say Tom Taylor's writing that story, but I could be wrong. But this is going to tie into the overall Batman story. It's not going to be a miniseries that's self-contained, but it will have effect on the main Batman title. We can have Black creatives do stuff like that. You could have a Black creative write something about Iron Man that may not be the main title, but has impact on the character overall. And that's something where we could see these people getting their name out there and say, oh, this person wrote that particular storyline. I like that writer, or I like that artist. What else are they doing? Or let me see more of them. It just doesn't need to be Black characters, because first off, there aren't that many, number one. Number two, they are not given a lot of shine when it comes to having their own titles or making appearances.
Paul, why
Yeah,
isn't it
first of all,
true?
there's a lot of black characters. DC
Not
alone
every
has over.
character deserves their own title, though. Not every character is a star.
Let me finish. There are over 300 characters that DC has that are black. There's of in Marvel alone, I think there's about 100 mutant characters alone. Just mutant characters, black mutant characters in Marvel. There's lots of black characters in there. These companies have been around for almost 100 years. There's lots of black characters in their histories. I think at the end of the day, the better way, in an ideal world, if that's something that they could do easily now as a replacement for both of these books, the Marvel Voices and DC Power books, is make a actual effort for celebrating and educating the general public on these creators and these characters. Here's a way to do it. Instead of releasing these two books, make it a cross-platform investment in doing B stories in all of the books. All books. If you're Marvel, all of your books are going to have a B story that features either a black character or a black creator who's working on that book. That's true representation. Then you could do a little bio on that creator and say, here's Arvell Jones. You might have known him from working on this book, and this book. Or here's Ron Wilson. He has a long history of working on The Thing. And so we're in the Fantastic Four, he's going to do a backup story on The Thing. And here's all other books you can find that he's done in Marvel's history. And that's a celebration of Black history at Marvel. That makes sense. And because think about it, these two books, if we're going with the premise that white people aren't going to buy these books because they don't view it as their books, they don't view it as books that have anything to do with them, they're not being educated on anything. But
No,
if it's
they're actually
inside
right,
a book
but
that they already get, if it's inside a book they already get, they're more than likely more willing to continue reading that same book and read the B story that's written by or drawn by this black creator, or about this particular character. And that's how you really get to educate the public, by putting it in the mainstream books. Do that for the whole month of February. Every book, DC and Marvel.
Are you
Better
charging
representation.
Is this still a $4 comic, or because there's more pages, it'll be a $5 comic?
Yeah, that B story gonna be $5.
You're referring to my boy Richard's Black Tax. That for black books, they always seem to add up the price. No, it shouldn't have. You shouldn't have to pay more for the same story.
So you're gonna get your regular 20 issues of Amazing Spider-Man. There's 5 more pages of what you're suggesting, and Marvel's just gonna eat the costs. Like that's
it's
just
not eating the cost. There's no additional cost. That's what I'm saying. This is why it makes economic sense for them to do it that way. The Spider-Man issue's already coming out, right?
Yes, got it.
And instead of it being 22 pages or 23 pages, it's going to be 17. It's going to be a shorter story.
Oh, I get it.
And then you're simply going to add a B story. You're going to take one of these anthology stories. Instead of putting eight stories in this anthology book, you're going to take one of those anthology stories and stick it in the back as a B story.
Don't you see the problem? Don't you see the problem with that? I paid for Spider-Man and I'm getting this other stuff because that's how I would feel.
You're still getting Spider-Man, but you're getting a little added thing in the back.
Yeah, you're getting less. You're getting less of the character you paid for. That's how to piss off customers.
And
if it pisses me off, I'm not going to be a customer anymore. I'll feel like that's how I am with the X-Men.
We're talking about one issue that comes out that month. So of your 12 issues you're getting Spider-Man, you're getting one issue in the month of February.
Yeah, okay. I wouldn't drop my subscription off of one because one issue did that to me. Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't. I still wouldn't like it if I'm getting not the titled hero on my comic.
But you have a better shot at getting that person to read about those characters and those creators than you would putting out a separate book that they're not going to even touch.
I'll do you one better. Instead of just a separate, Marcus.
No. I was agreeing with Paul. Instead of consolidating it just to this one book that you know that 3 out of 4 people are not going to grab, you can put it in the books that you know that they're going to see, that you know that they're going to be turning through for that 1 month, that you know that they're not going to drop their subscription for. Like Chill said, that's a smarter play, because now I have that creator's name in the back of Spider-Man fans. Maybe not all of them, but some. And then I got some Fantastic Four fans, and I got some Avenger fans, and you spread that wealth. Whereas the people who are picking up Marvel Voices are the same people who are picking up Blade and Black Panther.
I tell you that the best way is to integrate the characters. This wouldn't integrate a writer, but Integrate a character in Amazing Spider-Man, in Avengers, in Fantastic Four, here and there, because 1 year from now there's going to be this black comic book character who's going to get his or her run. So what are the movies doing? The movies are doing Blade. Okay. We know when the Blade movie is out, there will be a Blade series. We just know that. When that's coming, it's an inevitability. So plan for 2026. Make Blade appear here. Make Blade appear there. Have some plans for him. And then, because all the guys who read comic books in the Fantastic Four and Guardians, they'll be like, oh yeah, I know Blade. He's a part of Marvel. He matters. So now that he has his own ongoing series, I believe it'll have to do with relevant things that I've been invested in. I shall read it. Instead of stopping the story and being like, less Spider-Man, here's this news thing.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, it'd be better if they actually integrated a black character in the month of February, as your Black History Month celebration. Integrate a black character in the story somehow of all their books that are going out.
Wouldn't it be nice?
That would be nice.
Just for shits and giggles in the month of February.
And that's why I say skip it. That's why I say skip these books. Make them know that these aren't profitable. These are not worth it. Comic stores are not going to pre-order this comic book anymore. You're going to have to do something else for February, something of consequence.
I'm not a throw the baby out with the bathwater. I believe in having my cake and eat it too. I want both. I want more black characters to actually have meaningful and roles and agencies in all comics, but I also want to have a book that specifically recognizes and educates people on the past of these characters, obscure characters and their histories, and creators that have gone unacknowledged over decades now.
One thing I take up issue with, and Mark was talking to you about this, about many characters, how many of them are there, obscure characters. I see no value. I see them as distractions. I think
everybody can be. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead. I apologize.
You go. I got it.
No, I'm sorry. I apologize. But not everybody is going to be a Brad Pitt. Not everybody's going to be a Leonardo DiCaprio. Not all of these black characters that are created. Paul is right. There are hundreds in Marvel, hundreds in DC. Not every one of them, though, for whatever reason, is worthy of being an A-list character. There are characters who are just relevant enough to be a supporting, I hate to say it, sidekick type character. I mean, that's just the nature of life. Not everybody's going to be popular. Not everybody should be popular.
That's the same for white.
I disagree. I disagree, because a character is only viewed as a sidekick or not relevant or not cool enough based on how they're written. A character is only as good as the writer who writes them. When we have these debates about who would win in a fight, Blue Marvel or the Hulk, it depends on who the writer is that on that particular story. It's as simple as that. And here's the other thing. Understand, we're at the point now where these companies who release dozens and dozens and dozens of books every month, don't have that many lead titles with a black character on an ongoing series. I'm not talking a limited 5-issue series. I'm talking in an ongoing series. Marvel has Miles Morales and anyone?
What else they have?
Well, they have Black Panther, but he's done in 2 months.
And Blade, Miles.
Blade.
There's gotta be. Is Moon Girl?
No, she don't got her own going.
But then there's teams that have inclusion in them, which is normal. As they see five people.
I said a titled book in an ongoing series.
Well, Static just ended, didn't it?
Static.
Right. So here's the thing: there are plenty of characters that do warrant having their own book, and they don't have books. Blue Marvel is the top of my list. How does that guy not have his own book?
Yeah.
So why were you? So why were we? Blue Marvel has his own book, but why were you excited for Ghostlight? Why did any of us think, oh, new character? I lived through this in 2009, or we lived through this. I didn't really read comics then, but I saw you did nothing with him. So why care? New black hero, check it out, Al B. Harper.
Well, I was excited because it was a new black hero that was cosmic powered and had Jamaican heritage. 12-year-old me was born ecstatic.
You don't need any more new. If you want,
you can't speak for me, bro. I mean, I needed that. I mean, look, people like what they like. I like the idea of a cosmic powered Jamaican superhero. I think that's cool. And the reason I'm excited is because at least if they're introduced, there's a possibility that character will be carried on by another writer who approved by some other editor in the future. Has it happened? No. Am I disappointed by that? Absolutely am I disappointed by that. But it happens all the time. But again, we need better editors.
No. See, there's a one character who popped off named Miles Morales, and Bendis is exactly the reason why. Bendis hat, and we got another $2. Now I'm getting interrupted by the super chats. Bison for life, $2 going to the Black Comic Lords.
Appreciate that, man.
He's a Howard Red. No, he's cheap. He could have did more than that.
Wow. I don't co-sign that. None of us co-sign.
I'm throwing shade at Howard rival.
Man, you should be in timeout for that. Here, just for you. There, he's in timeout.
You know why you can't come down on new Black heroes too?
Why? Because I come down on it all the time. Because my point is representation is important up here. And if they're going to do a black thing because they get the heebie-jeebies when they got a whole team of all white people, I would love for it to be that same black character. I would love for Black Panther to be, all right, instead of Thunderbolts doing that unknown guy, what's his name? Victor? Powerhouse? Whatever his name was. Instead of doing that guy, Thunderbolts need Black Panther. Great. Black Panther appears again. Instead of this and that comic book, if it was the same guy over and over again, and if there wasn't 4 comic books of black heroes, and it was just one that they always went to, then that character would be risen. The dollars would concentrate to him, and maybe he wouldn't be canceled at 10. Because
that's also there can only be one mentality, right?
It's not a mentality of mine. It's a business practice of theirs.
Fine. It doesn't have to be your mentality, but the effectiveness is the same. You're still only elevating one black character at a time.
Yes, rather than elevating 5 characters who are character number 40 on their importance.
Allow me to get to my point, please, sir.
Sorry.
The damn, now I almost lost it. You were talking about Miles Morales and the reason why he was successful. It was because of Brian Michael Bendis. The reason why you cannot, or Michael Bendis.
You got it.
Brian Michael Bendis. Brian Michael Bendis. You can't come down on new characters like that because for every Miles Morales, there's an Ironheart, right? You had the same creator who made both of those characters. You're giving Miles Morales the credit for popping, and kudos. I love Miles Morales. My son loves Miles Morales. That's why you have to give new black characters a chance. But there is also a chance for that same creator that you're giving all the credit to for Miles Morales being a success to, I wouldn't say fail, but also not pop at the same level as a Miles Morales. You have middling characters. You have characters who are meant to be placeholders or quote unquote replacements to a mantle. You have characters who have the potential to maybe not supersede, but have a spot next to their usher into a mantle like Miles Morales. He's not ever going to be Peter Parker, but can he exist in his own? Can Miles Morales exist in Harlem? And expand that out into an ongoing and
Brooklyn, sir. Brooklyn, not Harlem. Brooklyn.
No. We're Miles. Oh well, I'm thinking about the game. My bad. I'm on the game. He's in Harlem in the game, but
don't get it wrong. Brooklyn.
He's in Brooklyn. My bad. But I'm saying they really should get him out of Brooklyn because that's peace.
No,
that's my point, right? Like he can exist in his own space and be his own man. He can do that, and it was only because he had a shot, right? People liked him. It perpetuated outside of comic books, and it popped. You can't come down on every new black character who isn't Storm or Black Panther because then no one will ever be the next Miles Morales.
I have a question. Why did Miles hit so hard the way that he did? Why did he get so popular?
Because Bendis was writing him in Ultimate Spider-Man. You were continuing with the numbering of Ultimate Spider-Man. It was just a story continuing, and he had years. Unlike Ironheart,
the second Civil War or something like. What was she in?
I was getting there. I was getting to that. Yeah. Civil War 2. Miles Morales was a big part of it, and Bendis was writing those things. As soon as that guy left the company, guess what happened to Miles? His importance, his stature, his relevance, all of a sudden his inclusion in these events goes down to tie-in.
But by that point, he had elevated outside the comic book realm. He was in live action now. Or not
I don't know if
and that helps. Ironheart doesn't have that.
Dropped off. Miles is one of Marvel's most popular characters. He's literally, I mean, just check merchandise. He's everywhere. He's had this movie by Sony They weren't. Sony could have done another cartoon version of Peter.
Had
He's had 2 movies by Sony that were tremendously, both critically and financially successful. So I wouldn't say that he's dropped off. If anything, Miles is more popular as Spider-Man than Peter Parker at this point amongst the youth. I mean, kids today, that when they think of Spider-Man, they ain't checking for Peter Parker. They're checking for Miles Morales.
I love Miles. He's getting up there, but Peter is Peter, right? Peter's going to be young, old, and in between now. I don't know if Miles has that staying power just yet. Now they need to get on the ball and do a live action. They do a live action movie with Miles Morales. They can bring him into something Marvel's got going. If they're still doing that,
Sony don't want to split the money with Marvel like that.
But if they do it, they've got the next 10 years sewed up.
Marcus, how old is
he?
He's 6.
Is he in the comic books?
As much as he could digest right now. Yeah, sure.
Is Miles one of his characters? One of his favorite characters?
Yes, one of his favorites.
Pull up this comment by Jeffrey Thorne. Miles hit because he was ultimate. He wasn't brought into the 616 until after he was popular there. Prior to that, he wasn't threatening anybody's precious continuity or ethnic worries. That's a good point.
I'm wondering why he's popular, because I was collecting Ultimate Spider-Man during that period of time. I have Ultimate Fallout when he made his first appearance. I'm just wondering what about the character and the writing about him made him hit the way that he did.
No, listen to the point that he made. He said Miles was in the Ultimate Universe until Secret Wars #9, right? He was in the Ultimate Universe. He was not a threat. You could do anything you want in Ultimate Comics because it's not part of the 616 continuity. That's what made the Ultimate Comics cool, because they could do things they couldn't do in the 616.
But my point is, there are other characters who were introduced in the Ultimate line, but did not, quote unquote, hit or pop the way that Miles did.
Was Bendis writing them?
No,
I don't know.
No, Bendis was writing Miles Morales.
When Bendis was writing Riri, that interfered with the legacy numbering of the Iron Man stuff, didn't it?
I mean, I wouldn't say that his writing it interfered with it. Marvel at the time, across the board, was renumbering their books. That's just what they do, and that's a problem that Mark and I always had as old time collectors.
We got $5 coming to BCL. Just wanted to show love. There's a lot of love being shown.
That, Rolliver.
Also planning on having a similar convo on my channel. These gatherings are important. Y'all doing stellar work. Keep it up.
Appreciate it, man.
When it comes to the Black History Month, February comic books, my mind wasn't changed. While I do understand how a story could be good, which is kind of what Paul opened up with, one of you guys opened up with it. I get it. You can enjoy it. And if you want to spend your money on something that you'll enjoy, I understand that. But we can have the same enjoyable quality stories with integration into the rest of the comic line of this year, like Timeless. We can do these things, and they just don't happen, and they haven't happened. As far as like believing that this is a jumping on point for somebody, nope. You could have fooled me with that the first time around and the second go around, but time has taught me that you'll just find other kind of opportunity type of writers going on Torian Rain Reloaded. I'm not convinced that buying a Marvel comic book in the month of February because it's Black History Month is really progressing anything. I think it's it's a distraction. The more this sells, the more they get to say, okay, we're doing enough. And I'm going to do this. I'll voice how they can make it better. Like if a Black comic book character, okay, King Matilli, if he got the same storyline that introduced Baba Nikisu, remember issue number 6 of Black Panther? If I got that in a Marvel Voices, I would go, oh, it moves forward the Black Panther comic. It's consequential. It's the backstory that we needed. They just didn't want to waste pages on the main series, right? I would go, oh, that's what they do in these comic book series. But I don't think so. Like Night Thrasher had a story in Marvel Voices. Time will tell. Will the Night Thrasher stuff matter to the ongoing series or limited series coming up?
Did Night Thrasher have a story in Marvel Voices?
Did he not?
I don't
know. That was kind of a joke we always had, is that they'd put his picture on the cover, but they never had
on the cover and he didn't have
I went off the cover. I'm sorry. Did Patriot have a story?
That's one of my beefs with the Marvel Voices. They keep putting characters that aren't inside the story on the cover.
False advertising.
Right.
Okay. Who did have a story? Patriot?
Patriot.
Now we know where Patriot's been for all of these years. We know what they think of him. He's already a sidekick by
nature. This is the first sighting of Patriot in this Marvel Voices book since Black Panther number 24 and the Coats Run.
So what are we celebrating?
Is Young Avengers still ongoing? Young Avengers. Is Young Avengers still
No, that hasn't ongoing for years.
I think they're doing that gang war thing right now, if I'm not mistaken.
They are, but I haven't seen Patriot make an appearance. I'm reading that, but I don't recall his making an appearance.
And I don't expect...
Patriot. What's ironic is seeing Patriot on the same cover as Sam Wilson as Captain America, Cap Falcon. Mark and I talked about this. Why do you need Sam Wilson as Captain America when Sam Wilson is Falcon? He's Marvel's first African American superhero. He's a Silver Age character with decades behind him. Why make him Captain America? It's a demotion, in my opinion. When you have a character like Elijah Bradley, who's literally the descendant of Isaiah Bradley, the previous Captain America, literally his descendant, has powers. Sam Wilson doesn't have superpowers. Elijah Bradley does have powers, like Steve Rogers. Give him the shield and let him be Captain America.
We've all, I think everybody's heard by now the rumors of the extensive reshoots that are happening to that movie, right? The
new movie, another movie.
I think that they're basically making another movie. I think that they're having the similar problem with what Paul just described, that Anthony Mackie, for real, but really Sam Wilson Falcon is better as Falcon than he is as Captain America. And somehow they thought that they were going to be able to get around that in film form, and you can't. I'm hoping and wishing a prayer that Feige has woken out of this comatose that he's been in for the last 5 or 6 years. And he says, you know what? Screw it. By the end of this movie, Sam Wilson is going to be Falcon, and we'll let Elijah Bradley take that younger Captain America role. Instead of trying to force the whole, no, Sam is our Cap now. We don't want it. And you can't make a movie that you're even confident enough in it to. So I think it kind of crosses over platforms in terms of the IP. He's better as Falcon than he is as Captain America.
Jeffrey Thorne, you don't want to hear what I have to say about Jon Stewart Green Lantern. Just saying. Torian Rain Reloaded. This is not a comic book movie, but there is a sci-fi movie coming out starring Black American actors called Parallel. Anyone heard of this movie? It looks very good.
I haven't heard of it.
Aldous Hodge and his brother Edwin.
Yes. No, it looks real good. It looks really good.
I just saw the picture. I didn't see the promo. I haven't seen the trailer for it.
The trailer looks really good.
Okay.
They had the chick from the not Hateful Eight. What was the movie with Majors where he was doing
not the Dirty Dozen. Things fall. The Harder They Fall.
Harder They Fall. Yeah. The
Deadweiler, I think her last name is.
The one in Till.
Yes, yeah. No, wait. No, she was in
Danielle Detweiler from Till.
Danielle Detweiler. Thank you.
Okay, yeah.
She was Butch in The Harder They Fall, but she was the mother of Emmett Till in Till.
Emmett Till, okay. There you go. Yeah.
You know, all this talk, I want to just share my screen and watch this trailer. I'm sure that's not a problem. Is it a problem for Black Comic Lords? Like you're not worried about
going to get us demonetized. Please don't do that.
Gotcha. We will not be doing that. Instead, we're going to just continue with this.
You can show a picture from it, but if you show the video, we'll
do the trailer reaction as soon as we end record, which is coming.
Do yourself a favor, chat. If y'all haven't seen it yet, go watch the trailer to Parallel. It's going to be a good one for sure.
So now I'm putting it up on my TV because I'd never heard.
You can put it. Chill. You can put the link in the chat.
Is there anything else we want to say about Black History Month comic books? Because the solutions that we offered. They're not listening. They won't do it. I did a video on this like 2 years ago. Me and Sean, his channel is The Comics Pals. We talked about this. We offered opportunities to, maybe make movie stuff, movie line, like Photon from the movies. What had happened after WandaVision? Put that inside there. Put that inside. Let people know that listen, all these other celebrations and whatnot. Yeah. But if you want to know the way we care about Black History Month, if you want to know what happened to these movie characters, you got to read the comic book. No other comic has the privilege of that anymore. That's where you can really hype it up and pump up this and advertise it to an audience who, like the movie audience, it's in the millions, not a few thousand people here and there. I have a solution. I have a solution video.
As my final word on the subject. If Marvel and DC truly want to say, hey, we're for Black history, We want to support this movement, what have you. We want to educate people on Black history. We want to celebrate Black people and Black culture. A true legitimate, honest investment in that, if you're really serious about that, would have you celebrate it in all of your books, not just a standalone book, all of your books. I want the same content that's being put in Marvel Voices and DC Power. I love that content. I do. It's great content, but put it in all of your books. Make it, force everyone to read it. If you're truly about, I want to educate the public, I want to celebrate this, celebrate it genuinely by putting it in all of your books in the month of February, period. And it doesn't cost you a single penny more as a backup story.
ATL Blurred.
That's a good idea.
Okay.
I mean, it makes sense.
Or at the very least, put Black characters. I mean, look, there are Black character versions or ties to every major Marvel character. If you want to do Black history in X-Men, have the story center around a random X-Men Black character whose name is not Bishop or Storm. If you want to celebrate Black history in Captain America, talk about the fact that his partner Falcon has a long history, or do a story with Patriot in it. If you want to celebrate Spider-Man, have it celebrate not just Miles, because he has his own book already, but the Prowler. The Prowler has a history with Spider-Man in Spider-Man comics. I mean, there's plenty of Black history. The more comics you read and the more you educate yourself, there's plenty of Black history in both of these companies, and they're not genuinely celebrating it by putting them in all the books.
I'm more and I'm looking at what's happening with Sync, and I can see a push. I'm also noticing, like, people have been getting pushes before and start and stops. So after this Jordan D. White era of the X-Men ends and Tom Brevoort comes in, is he going to have the same love for Sync, or is he going to just be like, Storm's the only one?
Storm, we've seen Tempo. We have seen a lot of what's the lady with the demon with the claws?
Monet.
Pennis. Right. We've seen a lot of X-Men that we haven't typically seen. Manifold got a decent push in Sword and in X-Men Red.
Hickman,
I'm worried.
That's Al Ewing. That's Al Ewing.
Yeah, they seem to be veering away from all of the Krakoa and the cosmic stuff, which was really getting a lot of Black X-Men characters to the forefront. And I just don't know if it's going to carry over. I mean, I don't know enough about DeBoer to know Devere. I don't know enough about him to know like what his temperament is, but I am worried about what the next phase of X-Men looks like after all of this.
Back to my point though, like, it's more important when they're up here. It's like the impact and the power of representation is of value the closer you are to number one. And I would take no Black characters at all except for Black Panther, if that would mean that the Black Panther was Marvel's, let's just say, the fourth hottest character after Wolverine and Spider-Man and Captain America. If he was the fourth hottest character, I'd go, this company is doing so much. Yeah, I don't care if I'm not going to see all these other guys. That level of inclusion would mean so much more to me than having Tempo and everyone we just named. Marcus says no. It's okay. We don't both have to be right.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it's definitely a preference thing. That feels very, very talented, Tinthy, and I don't describe to that. If you love Black people, if you want Black content, if you love Black writers, you'll want to pull as many of those folks up with you, and then the people who are up should pull other people up with them. That's how you see
writers
those characters rise.
I wasn't making a commentary on writers,
characters, what have you. You want to see as much of it as possible. If you consolidate all the Black Panther, you kind of are where we are now, where Black Panther ain't popping, nothing is.
Black Panther isn't even popping, and
and nothing else is it? Well, Blade. But
what does that say about the state of comics that Black Panther gets canceled after 10
years? Well, how did we let that happen, people?
I bought my books, so
I bought my books.
All of this discussion becomes moot if people aren't buying the books.
I know, but it's some sort. So it's like a chicken and the egg. They're also not putting Jeffrey Thorne on Black. Like, people recognize that, or Alex Ross wasn't doing the covers anymore. Like, the comic book customers know what makes a comic book sell. No disrespect to the writer at all. I enjoyed. I'm not saying that these were bad. For the most part,
respect to this writer.
Yeah, not
Right.
Hades.
Right. I just want to be clear. Yes.
No disrespect to Dr. Eve L. Ewing,
Correct.
Mhm.
but this is not, that hiring was never, oh, I got to pick up this comic book, because people go to the comic shop and they walk right past the shelves every single month and they see the Black Panther and they know it's Eve Ewing and they know he's not the king either, which is like, that's kind of her fault. Why would she honor Mr. Stupid? Why would she honor that and say,
Yeah, why would she be coherent?
why would she, for 8 issues though? It's been 8 issues and she still hasn't made that his intention or anything.
How do you coherently make it happen if you're not just going to skip over it? How do you coherently make it happen in less than 2 arcs?
Have you read Avengers #1?
Yeah.
Captain Marvel says you're an Avenger again. 1 page.
Right, but he's not king of Wakanda in there. He's still in exile in here, able to write a coherent story based off of Voldemort's writing. Right? They are still going based off of his portrayal of T'Challa. It still sticks. The continuity sticks.
What does that tell us?
just
What does that
forget
tell
it.
us? What does that tell us? Is that it's not the decision of just the writer.
Right. It's not
That's
the
an editorial
decision of
I would
whether or
hope
not
so.
you choose to put
As
him
not
on
a
the
king.
throne or not, because he's not on the throne in the Avengers book, and that book is doing just fine. That wasn't. I don't think that's what ultimately does it. Well, maybe it was. I don't know. I like to believe that it's not.
Here's
If
why
Will Moss were to go to Eve Ewing and say, "Hey, that last run, I've checked Twitter. There's this group called Black Comic Lords that keep saying I'm the devil and I'm destroying Black Panther comics, and I believe that, and the sales weren't that great. So when you take over this run, we'd like you to fix all the things this previous guy did and just make him king again." You don't think
If that was the directive, then she clearly failed. But I don't think he.
There's no way that was a directive.
Yeah, he didn't give it to her like that.
It wasn't given like that. I think if they wanted him to be king, he would be king again.
Just like if they wanted him to be an Avenger again, they would undo it again in 1 page.
Right.
Just
So
like
that lets you know that it's not a writer's decision.
I hope not.
These decisions are editorial decisions.
We're going to give Jeffrey Thorne more attention because he's important. Patriot is problematic because as a patriotic 20-something, the odds are high he'd be with Black Lives Matter mindset. Writing a Black man defending the American dream requires nuance and complexity. I've heard it and I agree. He wrote that like 5 minutes ago, though. I don't remember what he's talking about.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, David Walker's the one who wrote the story in Patriot and the Marvel Voices, and he deals with that exact subject where he's like, I'm a Black man. Why the hell do I want to sit here and dress up in red, white, and blue and fight for this country? And then, he has conversations with both Captain America, Steve Rogers and Cap Falcon. And the long and short of it is, well, look, you have some responsibility because you've got these superpowers to do something. And it's more than just representing. He says it was an interesting thought. He says it's not just about, T'Challa tells him that. Actually, I forgot. He spoke to T'Challa as well. He goes, I understand your beef with the country, but understand you have a responsibility to not just Black people in this country. You have a responsibility to Black people everywhere to do something, because they're part of humanity and you have a duty to humanity. And so that's why he ends up taking up the mantle again.
It's not just the writer. The editors have decided what the story for the year will be across the board on all of the books. And guess who's not featured?
Yeah,
they're working with
the editors are the one. Yeah, the editors are the ones who approve those stories. Yeah.
Within the parameters that they're given, we have to understand how comic books work and who decides what stories are written. Blame editors, not the writers. I think we can all be on board with that.
Oh, I'd much rather blame Cebulski and Moss than I would Eve Ewing, for sure. I'm on that train.
We appreciate everyone who joined us. In the description, it should be Black Comic Lords. There should be Back of the Bus. Check us all out. Chillmonger is where you can find me. And au revoir.